Okay, how kind of like we first create content that drives kind of like top of the funnel awareness, and how from there we actually take all the steps necessary to turn this awareness into revenue using AI agents in the process. Okay, so we'll follow that funnel analogy. Okay.
GTM AI podcast with Jonathan Moss and Coach K, where you get the latest with AI and GTM today.
Welcome to another episode of the GTM AI podcast. Thanks for joining. I have an amazing guest today, Amos Bar Joseph, who is the co-founder and CEO of Swan AI. Welcome to the show, Amos. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Jonathan, can I have you with me around when I need to be introduced to someone so you can just always do that for me? Can I do that?
You got it, my friend. Just call me your hype man. Just bring me in. Call me in, coach.
That sounds amazing. I love it.
So let's dive into a little bit about you, and let's make sure that I get it right so you can fill in any details. So you're a Tel Aviv-based entrepreneur and the CEO of Swan AI, as I mentioned. So Swan AI is specializing in AI-powered sales agents, hot topic these days. And under your leadership, we've seen your growth path. What is amazing about you is you're showcasing things in public, which we really love, on LinkedIn, talking about your journey and things, which is absolutely amazing. And of course, I've been a fan for a while, been following, so I'm super excited to get to talk to you today. So prior to founding Swan AI, you co-founded Rubric, I think, or maybe it's Rubric IQ. It's a travel technology startup that addressed flight disruptions. So you've had some experience in the travel tech industry. You also were a CEO of wherever.im, a Web3 native messaging platform. And you also worked at Rotom, which was acquired by KPMG. So a lot of acquisitions, a lot of CEO, a lot of tech. Man, just full of, what did I miss? Anything else you want to share about your journey or what you've done? Because it seems like you've been very accomplished in the last few years.
Yeah, definitely. I can share that just with Swan. It was the first time that I really felt like I'm passionate about building something. I felt the old playbook of building startups burnt me out, and I was so tired of it. And you mentioned building in public. Part of building in public for me is sharing this passion for building a new playbook and rewriting what we know about scaling companies. I'm excited to talk about it today as well, and excited to be here, Jonathan.
I love it. Yeah. And it does. It burns a lot of people out, just the constant grind and hiring a bunch of people. And so let's actually dive into this, because you've actually been a very advocate. And I actually believe, you tell me, but you're trying to create this kind of category, if you will, or this new approach to this, what's called the autonomous business model, which I really love, by the way. And so you've been this vocal advocate around this, which is actually contrasting a traditional unicorn approach. So I'd love to dive into this. And so the way you've approached this, you've called it the Swan model, I believe, which kind of makes sense. Swan AI, I love that little parallel there. And what you're doing is, unlike other startups who have to scale through headcount, which there's a ton of challenges scaling through headcount, and you've seen many startups fail doing this, you actually operate just with 3 founders, if I'm correct. You're aiming for 30 million of ARR, and you use AI agents in this paradigm of human and AI collaboration, where AI handles the execution and you're focused on vision, strategy, and then managing the agents and helping go along the way. So tell us a little bit. So you mentioned burnout and things, but really what inspired you to pursue this type of model, and give us a little bit of insight of what you're seeing from it.
Yeah, definitely. It's not my first rodeo, so I did it twice before, and I raised the funds, built the initial team, scaled the sales team to 6 to 7 figure deals. And what I realized over time is that these types of companies, they don't pursue value creation, but what they are actually focused is valuation inflation. Okay, so they're super focused on, and their investors and the share of the stock, basically. And that's just, it's not the fault of the founders. I've been there myself. It's just that it's kind of like the natural tendency of building for the next round all the time. And what happens is that this dynamic that 99% of companies fail. They raise a lot of money. They promise a lot to customers, to employees, and they just try to get to the next round by selling a bigger dream and a bigger dream. And what we're seeing, that finally AI is actually an amazing tool to build a company. Instead of using capital, you can use intelligence. Instead of using a headcount, you can use intelligence. And so the autonomous business model what it actually revolutionized is the core operating system of a business and how you should think of running your business. And the promise is that the future belongs to SMBs, actually. And they are going to be the biggest winners of this revolution because finally, an SMB could run, if you want, you can have 50 employees and you can run it at a 10,000 enterprise scale, but you can also build an amazing business just with 3 founders out of their garage, just like we're doing basically. We're trying to get to $30 million ARR, and we just started 9 weeks ago, and we're super stoked about it, already growing to over 100 customers, and we're just trying to prove that this is not just a theory. We're not just theorizing about it. We're actually building the blueprint and we're writing the playbook and we're trying to share it with the community and actually build kind of like a movement around us so that SMBs could feel empowered.
It's amazing. And I feel like you're building that movement. Just again, came on the scene even for me. And I was like, all right, this seems very interesting because obviously I'm very involved in AI community and AI agents and things of that nature. And I was like, okay, let's keep up with what you're talking about and really appreciate that. And you said a few things which are super interesting. One is around the kind of old startup model. You mentioned valuation inflation and that you've done this before and hired a bunch of people. And it's really taxing. It's taxing in 2 ways. One is it takes a lot to hire people, to train people. They only have so much finite knowledge that you can train them on. And a lot of times where I see, especially in young startups, is the founders have this great view and the view of what they want the business to be. They understand how to sell the product and service and the problem and the impact that it's happening. But a lot of times that's not documented and it's hard to then transfer that into some new hire. And you mentioned you're building this with intelligence, which is great because you can train AI, you can give the insight and it can have this intelligence about how you grow intelligently, smartly, and especially when capital is hard to come by to some degree. If you look at AI companies, obviously they're getting some capital, but capital is hard to come by. And if you take capital, you have to grow into that valuation. So to your point, you're constantly just trying to grow into the valuation and getting to the next round. So it's mind blowing. So what I'd love for you to do is take us through, can you give us a few examples of how your team are using AI agents for intelligence to really augment your team's capabilities and take some of those things? So just give us a few examples of how you're using them.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to double down on the last word almost that you said. It's about how we're augmenting the team, right? It's not, I think the first myth that we need to break here is that AI agents are not digital labor. Okay. I think that, the fallacy that we have in GTM especially is we're looking for quick wins, and it's okay. It's the nature of having quotas and having so much pressure on pipeline or MQLs or whatever. And so we're always looking for that quick wins. And we just want to have an AI that would save us all. And we can just hire digital workers that could just run the business for us. And that's not what the autonomous business model is about. It's not about hiring digital employees. And people should understand that we could actually outsource cheap labor for hundreds of years. That possibility existed, right? So if you want a cheap SDR, you can do that already. You can just go to developed countries or just go and outsource agencies, and you can already do that. And so people are so excited with the idea of just having an AI SDR, but we don't get it. And for one, we look at things differently. We don't try to hire agents instead of people. What we do is we try to show the world that when you reimagine human AI collaboration at the core of your business, you can unlock the 100x seller. Right. And so I actually operate as a 1-person GTM department, basically. And I do marketing, demand gen, awareness, but I also do outbound and I do sales and I actually generate a pipeline. And if you follow my process, it's not for everyone, basically, but it's an example of the 100x seller, basically. If you let's look at it from a funnel perspective. Okay. How can we first create content that drives kind of like top of the funnel awareness, and how from there we actually take all the steps necessary to turn this awareness into revenue using AI agents in the process. Okay, so we'll follow that funnel analogy. Okay, that sounds good, Jonathan. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Audience, you guys, are you with me? Are you listening? Great. I hear you. So basically, I use Shakespeare. I call it Shakespeare, but that's like my co-pilot for writing amazing LinkedIn content. Okay. So actually, I spend most of my time in thinking about what to write, but not in how to write it. Okay. So I already have an agent that has access to kind of like a knowledge base with all my previous posts, with what Swan does, with our playbooks, with our kind of like manifesto. And it has access to the internet. It can perform like deep account research and kind of like backed a lot of insights that I have with data-driven claims. And so I just worked with that specific Shakespeare agent to take a process that could have taken me a week, maybe sometimes, or like several days, and to condense it into a 20-minute session when I streamline my thoughts to that agent, and together we work on a post, and that post generate consistently over 1.5 million impressions every month. Okay. So these posts are really hitting it, and I work on it together with Shakespeare. Then we have all this awareness. Well, what do we do with it, basically? Then we have the observer, basically. The observer observe all the interactions on my LinkedIn posts. Basically, I have more than 15,000 engagements on my posts, likes and comments, etc. And what do you do with that? You can either throw it to waste, or you can have an AI agent that would actually go over all these data points and surface the hottest leads that are actually engaging consistently with my content and are right for conversation. As the agent surface these leads to me in Slack, basically, and that is an important side note here. Slack is our command center. All of my agents live in Slack, and I communicate with them via Slack. And it's important. Without it, it won't be possible to actually orchestrate this swarm. And the observer surface high intent leads and that are engaging with my posts. Then we have the connector, which is a little bit down the funnel. These are leads that didn't only engage with my post, they sent a connection request. They want to connect on LinkedIn. And so I have the connector that filters out non-relevant leads and help me to focus on ICP leads that sent a connection request. Okay. And sends kind of like a conversational starter. And I take it from there once there's a reply only. Okay. So that's step below. Then we have folks that saw the content, connection request, but then went to the website. Okay. But they didn't convert yet. Then we have the hunter, which is basically our flagship product. Basically what Swan specialized in is in basically turning your website visitors that didn't convert into pipeline. And so we have the hunter Swan that analyzes all these visits, basically filters out non-relevant leads, qualifies them, research them, identify the context that I want to engage, and sends kind of like the personalized first touch point. And then whenever there's a reply, I kick in and kind of like take the conversation from there. After that, we're not done yet, guys. It's an agent swarm. It's crazy, but we're very close to the finish line. So we talked about from the awareness all the way to the website. Then we have the gatekeeper. So folks that actually wanted to reach out, wanted to actually learn more. What we've learned is that inbound could be a terrible channel if you don't handle it appropriately. Because inbound could be a lot of noise, a lot of unqualified leads that just want to learn, etc. We have a gatekeeper agent that looks at a form that you filled, which is very limited, and research it, understands all the pain points, etc., and knows how to route the leads accordingly. We have a waiting list if you're not a fit. Then we have free trial for low value, and then we have a high value. It's a demo with me. If you got to a demo with me, I have an agent that do all the prep for me, research. I have my calendar already filled with couple important things. So of course, all the research that has been done on the account, decision-making power of the visitor, of the attendee, right? Decision-making power is super important. And finally, similar companies that we already work with. So I have these 3 data points already available to me when I go on a call, and I can take the discovery time to 0 almost and focus a lot on just tailoring the value proposition to their use case. Then finally, an agent that takes the call, summarize it, notes, action items, and tasks in the CRM, and drafts a follow-up. That's it, guys. The swarm of a 100x seller. That's how it works.
I love it. All right. So much to unpack there. So a few things that I want to highlight. So one is, out of all of those agent swarms, when you think about this, and I talk a lot about this as well, the first thing people try to do, and I think really this is potentially finance driven, because they're always trying to look at this ROI of AI, is they want to try to remove costs. And that's definitely the wrong approach, especially when you're talking to people about people and digital. It's not there yet to a lot of degrees. And what's interesting about what you just said is, as you go down through your process and through the funnel, if you will, there's a lot of things those agents are doing that you wouldn't hire anyone for. right? If you think about just the majority of what you said, I'm not going to hire someone to be a connector of my LinkedIn. I'm not going to hire someone to look at my impressions and try to follow up. I'm not going to the only probably one a little bit maybe content and maybe the inbound qualification. But let's be real. When we talk about AI agents, the SDR comes up a lot, right? These AI SDR, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know anyone that really every single day wakes up and says, man, can't wait to get my coffee. I can't wait to log into my CRM, get my list. I can't wait to cold call a bunch of people that I get hung up on, cussed out on. I get told no more than I get told yes. There's probably a very small percentage of people, if any, that wake up every single day and are intrinsically motivated to go do that type of work. And so I really want to hit on that point, which is that this augmentation is the right approach, and finding these things that are inefficient or are very manual, or you couldn't get to in the past because you didn't have the intelligence and the capability and the tooling or technology to be able to do that like you're doing with AI agents. Kudos to you. And I really love the approach. Talked about the unlock the 100-time seller, which is awesome, the way that you've approached it. And you broke it down into a process. And we talk a lot about on this show and just in conversations, a lot of people think that AI is like this magic wand. You're just going to throw AI at everything and it's going to solve all of your problems. And it's really just not the case. You've got to have the right data. You've got to have the right process. You got to ensure that you've got all of these things. And really, you've got to train AI to be successful. It's not just something that you're just going to off the shelf, out of the box, throw at a problem and expect it to actually solve it for you in the right way. I appreciate you walking us through that. And so all of these agents that you've built, these are part of either Swan AI. Are they all part of Swan AI's product, or are some of these internally you built them in order for you to, again, help you get to that 100-time seller, that autonomous business model? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Basically, the core agent that we offer at Swan AI is kind of like the hunter for the website visitors, right? It is able to identify your anonymous website visitors, then it researches them, qualifies them, segment them, finds the relevant contacts, and actually engage on your behalf from LinkedIn. And you can have it kind of as a co-pilot, approval-based everything, or you can have it more autonomy and it will actually reach out without any approvals. But basically, this is kind of like the main agent. The rest of the agents we built basically like an internal product. But I will tell you, guys, if you're listening, so you're the first ones to know that. So we're actually releasing a beta soon. To give you the superpowers that we have at Swan, basically to turn any GTM idea into a live experiment in seconds using an AI agent from prompt to pipeline. We call it the autonomous GTM engineer, basically. And that will be an engineering resource for you guys, because what SMBs mainly are lacking, and we have folks at the enterprise who lack that as well, is a RevOps resource, basically. If they could instantly snap their fingers and connect their systems in an amazing way and run a motion from end to end as they could imagine, they would turn the number of experiments they run from like 1 every quarter to 100 a month, basically. And we're seeing already that folks that are using Swan with kind of like the current GTM engineer who's designed for the website visitors motion, the amount of experiments they run just for that specific motion got increased 100x. Because of that, the ability to actually tell the agent, you know what, let's reach out from the CTO's LinkedIn. You know what, let's segment to this type of segment. I want low value to be automated. I want high value to be approval based with this specific team. Just run all these experiments and it's just a message away in Slack. And you can see how it kind of like unlocks this creativity out of GTM teams. And so that is what we're actually building. And so to your point, Jonathan, we are actually trying to enable SMBs to be able to build all these amazing agents just themselves.
I think this is a huge problem to solve, right? And I appreciate you bringing it up and thinking about solving it. And let's spend some time here. So there's a couple of problems that happen today. So one is SMBs are usually the lifeblood, right? More of them are getting created and set up, but they a lot of times either lack the capital, the expertise, or the resourcing in order to figure out their way of how to be successful. And many of them, I think you said 90%, which I think is accurate after a certain period of time. I think 70% of them fail in the first year, I believe, and then it's 90% after a few years or whatever it is. And if I think about that, Like there has to be a better way, right? And with the AI, with the ability to leverage agents, what you just said is, okay, so a lot of times they pick a motion or they pick a go-to-market strategy or they implement something that they think is the right thing or some consultant told them or whatever, whoever it is or whatnot. And they're unable to experiment and figure out and optimize on an ongoing basis because they lack the domain expertise, they lack the data infrastructure, or they lack the intelligence of being able to even figure out, even if they had the data, what do I do with it? What is it telling me? And so this concept of this autonomous go-to-market engineer and what you're building, I think, is phenomenal. But I want to back up to one thing before we get into what it is specifically, which is the reason that you're doing it. Don't we have all kinds of tools already that do this, that can quote unquote help us in this arena or be able to, the go-to-market space is no short of tools and tech that's out there. And so tell me a little bit about, was this a conscious decision that there is not a tool out there or there's not something out there that I can use that would benefit me in the way, so that's why I'm building it, so I'm filling a market gap? Or is this something that was more so related to say, hey, there are things out there, I just think I can do it way better in a different way, and that's what I'm going to go build? So tell me a little bit about your thought process of like why you decided to go down the route of an autonomous engineer, and then or GTM engineer, and I want to spend a little bit of time about specifically what are the ways that you can use it and how SMBs can be successful.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of these leaps that we create as businesses comes from a unique observation on the market, right? And our unique observation came from the fact that we saw a technological revolution happening. We saw the GTM space in havoc. Things are going crazy. People are running all over the place trying to get their hands on the hottest AI startup, but still they're struggling. They're struggling to create pipeline. How the hell could that be? And so we started digging deeper and we realized that there are like two market forces right now, and both of them aren't the solution and are actually not the solution, but the delusion. And the first one is AI SDRs. Okay. And there's this debate, SDRs exist in an AI world or not. And we think it's the wrong debate. And AI SDRs brought that wrong debate just because they lack the creativity to understand how we should use AI in the first place. And if you actually take a few steps further, understand what happens if everyone has an AI SDR. What happens? And let's take that AI SDR to the extreme. It's an amazing AI SDR. Okay. The AI, it's amazing. It's the best AI that we've ever imagined. What happens if in a world where every GTM team has access to the best AI SDR? So a GTM is a zero-sum game, okay?
Yep.
You always need to just outperform your competition. And so if everyone has AI SDRs, then what happens? Who wins? I'll tell you who wins, Jonathan. The people who wins are the ones who master the human AI collaboration. You will win because you have the best human stack, not tech stack. And so GTM alpha comes from creativity, not from everyone having the same stack and using the same AI agents just to blast their prospects with spray and pray messages. And so we've quickly realized that it's not about AI SDRs. That's not the future. And whether you're debating if SDRs exist or not, you're completely wrong. That's not the question. You should try to figure out what works for you, what will bring your alpha. How could you outperform your competitors? Maybe you will have amazing SDRs, you will win. Maybe your type of segment is low ACV, so you don't need SDRs, and you could win with full lifecycle AEs, whatever. But the question is like, how could you use AI to outperform your competition using your human stack and your unique understanding of the market? So that is one unique observation that we have. And then we look on the other side of the other market force that is changing the landscape, changing quote unquote. And we look at Clay, and I'm sorry to drop names here, but I feel like this is something that a lot of people actually approach me and they said, okay, this is an amazing tool. It's an amazing product. You can do so many beautiful things with it, but I don't know how to use it. That's what they tell me. I don't know what to do with it. And they tell me you should use it. And then I hear from another person, yeah, I'm not using it. I'm actually paying $6,000 a month for an agency to build me tables, but it's amazing. And so what we realized that Clay was right in terms of they try to amplify the creativity of GTM teams. They put the focus on the creativity, but what they did is they forced go-to-market teams to become engineering teams. They should not focus on human interactions. They should spend their entire day in front of cells and sheets and move data points from A to Z. And if you've seen the Severance show, so basically that's the future that they're promising people sitting in front of a computer, just moving data point from a cell to cell. That is not the future of go-to-market organizations. And when I talk to sales leaders, they believe that sellers should be focused on human connections, and they want to run a human-led organization, not a machine-led organization. They don't want to turn their GTM org into an R&D org, basically. And so we realized that Clay identified the problem in a right way, but didn't nail the solution. And so we set out to actually build a solution that amplifies human creativity, that scales human connection, and acts as a resource so that you can minimize the amount of time that you spend in front of the machine and maximize the amount of time that you can strategize or focus on your buyers. And that's kind of what led to building the autonomous GTM engineering.
I love that, because there's $2 trillion last reported wasted annually on sales and marketing and from inefficiencies. And every time that these tools and things come out, I couldn't agree more. Like, I know how powerful Clay is, but the UX UI just is hard to figure out. To your point, the way that they've been able to scale is through like agencies and consultants, because no one knows. These are people that are like super users, right? And they're building businesses around them, which is phenomenal. And kudos to them for being able to jump on the opportunity. But in the world, what we want to do is we want to get people out of from behind the computer or from using software. One of the terms I like to use a lot is pretty much all the software, or a lot of the software today, you have to work for. I have to go in and type or make selections or do edits or do these things. The software doesn't work for me. And the promise of software was it was going to make me more productive. But what it's actually done is cause me to have more admin time than actually do being productive. And so we've got to flip that paradigm, and we have the opportunity to do that now with AI agents, where they can actually go execute the task for me and do the work for me, which actually gives me more time back in my day to spend with customers or to spend on complex problems that I need to solve, or other things that I could be way more valuable at than going into my CRM or following up on this email or whatever missed opportunities I'm having. So I love the fact that you do that. So give us a success story or an example. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Good.
Yeah, Jonathan, I want to double down here because you raise an interesting point. And I think that's one of the problems with AI solutions right now, and GTM tech by large, even not AI solutions, but I'm actually, even the latest technology wave is guilty in that sin, basically, is that the solutions are focused that you will actually spend a huge amount of time in complex onboarding, try to orchestrate very complicated workflows so you could nail your desired go-to-market motion in one shot and just have it run autonomous for 3 months or like 6 months right now. And that's it. You're not going to touch it. And what we're seeing is that there's this notion of workflow decay, basically. These workflows gets decayed very quickly because the market is not constant. And your go-to-market motion is not constant. And systems break. And humans make mistakes. And there's this chaos. And you cannot bet on a system that tries to nail everything from the get-go, from the onboarding. And what that creates is a very complex and long setup, and a system that is super prone to errors, and it's very hard to maintain and optimize. And what we actually discovered at Swan, we see ourselves as one of the most innovative agentic technology companies in the world right now, not because we're building an amazing tech, just because we figured out the most important piece of the puzzle, the human AI dance. How do you work with AI in your computer? How should that look like? That's what we figured out that no one actually figured out. And so the difference is, the main difference here, Jonathan, is that at Swan, we're not optimizing for building a 100% perfect motion from day one. Instead of that, what you have in Swan lives in Slack. It's built for feedback. Everything is a message that you can reply to and converse with. And so you have a very lightweight onboarding. And Swan is built for quick feedback loops. So
Hmm.
the moment that you spot something that is not to your liking or is a mistake or anything, you just tell Swan. Swan updates it, refine its memory, and will never repeat that mistake again. And so the way that you work with software is more like you onboard a new hire to your team. You don't just dump that new hire all the playbooks, all the things in the company, and you expect them to do all the tasks that it was supposed to do. You start with the first week and kind of like limited scope. You see the results, you see where it's lacking, you give it feedback, and you improve it. And then after a couple of weeks, depending on how good that new hire is and their learning curve, they get up to speed and they can do everything. And that's how you should work with AI agents. And when you look at companies and solutions like Clay or Sixth Sense or all these terrible orchestration machines, they're not built for the agentic era. They are not built for feedback loops.
You're exactly right. And go to market, for those that understand it, it's something you mentioned here around the system. It's a very complex multivariate system that constantly changes. And when you make certain adjustments in one place, that variant can actually have adverse impacts in another place. And in order to operate a multivariate system that's as complex as go-to-market, and a lot of people don't think about it this way, is you have to really have the technology help you be able to do this. And you got to have these constant optimizations and constant intelligence and constant data and all these things, because you're trying to figure out what you mentioned, like the perfect go-to-market motion. To get to that perfect motion, you have to constantly do A/B testing, variables. You got to understand your performance data. You have to optimize. And so it's super complex. And the only way to get after it in this new world is really to have AI agents help you do that, because you're never going to be able to solve it yourself. And so I think that's a really important point that you make. And I think the second thing is, we've been going through these paradigm shifts. So depending upon those listening, where you are on your journey through AI, we went from Google to ChatGPT, and people try to use ChatGPT like they did Google, right? But it's a totally different way. And this is where prompting or prompt engineering came in. It's a totally different way. You're actually interacting with a machine in a different way. We used to use the kind of phrase, like, think of it as your intern and things of that nature. So talk to it in that standpoint. Now we're making this next leap and step into agents, and it's taking prompt engineering to the next level, where you actually have to think about training it like an employee. How would you train your employee? How would you think of it as a digital teammate? Because you can't just give it one prompt and a little bit of a knowledge base and think that it's going to go and execute. Like, you have to go through, just like you were going to onboard a new employee. And hopefully, for those listening, do it the right way, because I still know companies that don't. They just slap it down. Here's your like a 2-hour training. Here's your contact list. Here's your systems. Go after it. Here's your quota. Go get it. But ultimately, you have to really be thoughtful in your approach, because the better that you train it, the more details that you give it and the right prompting ultimately is going to be the best outcome that you're going to get. And so it's really the same way, garbage in, garbage out. And so ultimately you have to make sure that you do that. So really good stuff. So I would love to, in the last couple minutes, so if I'm a founder, or even if I'm in go-to-market today, and you've mentioned a lot about what you're doing, which I, again, absolutely love. But if I'm taking it from just your basic every regular day gal or guy that's sitting here and listening and saying, man, this is awesome, where the hell do I begin and where do I start? What advice would you give them, whether it's a founder or whether they're just trying to figure out, okay, obviously Swan, I got you. We can get these two things. We can get the autonomous go-to-market engineer in beta here pretty soon, which is phenomenal. Thanks for sharing that. You've got your hunter, but you also mentioned other agents that you use. And obviously there's other agents outside of even what you're using as well that you could do across go-to-market. So give us, like, what advice, as you went through this journey, what advice would you give people listening of how to get started and how to do this?
Yeah. So actually, before the advice, one sentence before that.
Yes, go for it.
I get that question every day, hundreds of times, from so many people, builders and buyers and operators. And what I did actually is I took the entire playbook that we're writing, because we're documenting everything on Swan AI, and we're building in public. So I have all these content mountains that I've already written, and I've actually built a GPT inside ChatGPT. Okay. It's called the Autonomous Business OS, and it's actually designed to help you not only understand how to build a system of action around your AI agents, but to actually build it, not only to understand it, but to actually take it step by step. So you can chat with it. You can explain yet, like, what's your story? What's your level? How do you want to approach it? And then it will actually tell you, okay, these are the agents that Swan are using. These are the playbooks that we have. These are like the frameworks that we're using. And together in a conversation that can actually apply it to your business. So that's before my advice. You should know that you have that resource. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or try it looking for it in the GPT store. And I'd love to share it with you. And as per the advice, Jonathan, so I say that people are trying to make it super complex and overwhelming, but it's not. It really isn't. And the secret is starting small and starting with a defined scope. Try to automate or to augment your humans in your company in a specific task that is very low hanging fruit. And it should be a repeatable task that has very small variance to it. These are the qualities that you need for that. It's a repeatable thing in your business and it has low variance, meaning that it's usually the same input and the same output. Okay. So for example, it could be an email that you're receiving with an invoicing that you want an AI to classify, is this an invoice or not? So it's always an email. It's always the same type of input. The AI only needs to classify if it's yes or no. And you have already these no-code tools to do that. It's extremely simple. You just need to dedicate like an hour or so to say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to find something in my business that I can actually automate. And just start with it. You'll nail the first process and you see how easy is it from there. And you can actually take it. Sky's the limit after that.
Love it. Great advice. And I completely agree with you. Start small, think about it, make sure that you've got your data, your process, and really also figuring out what talent you have as well, because that can also define what step you take next with the technologies. Man, so for the audience listening, make sure that you follow Amos on. Are you also on X or are you mainly just on LinkedIn?
I'm mainly on LinkedIn.
Okay.
My people live in LinkedIn, so I talk to them there.
Love it. All right. So follow you on LinkedIn. Check out Swan AI. Check out the GPT. I'm actually going to go look for it right now. Check out your autonomous, what's it called? Autonomous OS GPT?
Exactly.
Cool. Autonomous OS GPT. Make sure you check that out. It's been another great episode of the Go-to-Market AI podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. It has been a pleasure, my friend.
Thanks for listening to the GTM AI podcast. Please follow, subscribe, like, comment, and come back for more.